take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to our panelists, Ms. Andrea Zabka, Ms. Hannah Reynal, Ms. Ida Ganga, Ms. Lori McNeil, Ms. Rachna Busari, and Ms. Rita Kakati Shah. So before we dive into the panel discussion, what is Womenomics? Womenomics is a term that came into life in 1999 when the then Prime Minister of Japan adopted it as a policy based on the idea that Japan can boost its economy by getting more women into the workforce and reward them with jobs and salaries that match their skills, talents, and ambitions. This movement, which started in Japan, quickly radiated across the globe. Now, in the developing world too, more women have paid jobs. In the emerging East Asian economies, for every 100 men in the labor force, there are now 83 women, higher ever than the average of the OECD countries. Women have been particularly important to the success of Asia's export industries, typically accounting for 60 to 80% of jobs in many export sectors, such as textiles and clothing. In developed economies, women produce just under 40% of an official GDP. But if the worth of the housework is added, which values the hours worked at the average wage rates of a home help or a nanny, then women probably produce slightly more than half of the total GDP. So the Womenomics movement in place, the Global Women Business Summit is coming together to put in a panel of experts who will bring great insights from the world of business and how women entrepreneurs can leverage the opportunities provided by the business ecosystem, such as banks, state and national policies, fundraising, infrastructure, etc., so as to create a bigger impact on their own and the country's economic health overall. So on that note, I would like to introduce our panelists for today. First, I would like to introduce Ms. Andrea Zabka. She coaches curious individuals, future business owners, and community leaders to materialize business and social impact ideas by following a tailor-made profession, passion, mission roadmap, and personal brand strategy so that they can earn a living by doing what they love. She graduated from Budapest Business School of College of International Management and Business Economist, majoring in foreign economy, specializing in stock exchange and financial institutions. She's a group coach, goal and success coach, therapeutic art life coach, life purpose coach, a professional life coach transformation, academic sport and dance trainer for the BSA Sports Academy, and also a personal branding coach at Spendless Academy. It is a pleasure to have you with us today, Ms. Andrea. And with that, I would like you to break this monologue by answering the question, what is your opinion or thoughts on Womenomics and how were you able to contribute towards the same? Over to you, Ms. Andrea.
It's always happened when we have to mute ourselves. So welcome everyone. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me into this panel. It's really exciting. We are really working on similar things with you, and whatever is behind me, it's very aligned with your goals. So Womenomics for me, it's really something that is happening all around the world for a long time already. And in my opinion, it's happening because it has to happen. Because if we wanna do forward and keep the same level of lifestyle, and we would like to have the little bit higher prosperity, it's not enough already that only one person is working in the family, but everyone in the family has to contribute to actually cover all the costs of the prosperity that we are hunting and running after. So basically, we're a little bit pushed into this Womenomics situation. I'm happy for that. So I'm really happy, but I personally would like to raise attention for the other side, what is coming with it, the time, the lack of support for the women to do everything at the same time, to do all the roles that we have at the same time, and to just try to change things so that it's supporting a little bit more the women to be on their best, right? So for this, we need to change a little bit how the society thinks about the roles, how the governments are supporting all the things around women or families or any other groups who are underrepresented. And we also need to check all the things that are happening all around the world, like domestic violence, child marriage, all the things that are actually pulling down this development, because first we have to deal with these causes, and we need to just take take a break from that, and then we can totally thrive together. And what I do is actually this part, that I'm trying to raise awareness globally about all the problems of women and underrepresented groups. And my summit that I did in October, it was actually was born with the goal to lose the label women and not use it anymore, but just use the empowerment itself, because it really doesn't matter anymore whether it's a woman, it's a man, it's a child, it's an elderly woman, or an LGBT community person. It's all about that everyone has to contribute, because if the people cannot work, we cannot sustain ourselves, or we will not be able to sustain those who are not on the labor market. So it's really important for me to raise awareness about this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Andrea. With that, I would like to introduce our next panelist, Ms. Rachana Busari. Ms. Rachana is the Vice President of the National Stock Exchange of India Limited, which is currently ranked the world's second largest exchange in cash market trades. She is responsible for all India business development initiatives of NSE for listing of small and medium enterprises on the bourse. She is postgraduate in financial management and commerce, and a law graduate with nearly 20 years of experience of working with the National Stock Exchange. In her earlier roles at NSE, she was handled functions like listing, investigation, member supervision, and clearing corporation operations. She is also the vice chairperson of the World Federation of Exchanges SME Working Group. So we are proud to have you with us today, Ms. Rachana. And with that, the question for you today is, what is your opinion or thoughts on Womenomics, and how were you able to contribute towards it? Over to you, Ms. Rachana.
Thanks a lot, and good evening to all my panelists. It's the earlier panel was really power packed and really motivated me, and it was actually thought provoking as well. So coming back to the question that is being posed to me about Womenomics, I sincerely believe that in India we've been having Womenomics. It's about that we're talking nowadays about it. We're promoting more and more about it, and we're motivating people to get more and more into it. It's more organized and structured currently while I talk to you. So my opinion on that would be that it's very, very important for any nation to develop, to acknowledge the fact that the half of their population needs to contribute to growth of any economy, and whether it is in the organized sector or it is in the unorganized sector as well. And to the women, I would like to say that, it's about we breaking the barriers that we built around us. It's very, very important that, I think at the beginning of the session, Nikita said that, we get into so many roles of a mother, a daughter, a wife, a friend. I think it's very important for us to establish that, what role at what point of time and how much a priority I give to that role. So it's important that we prioritize and we do that, and we take a step forward to actually pursue what we feel and we want to go ahead with, pursue our goals, pursue our aspirations towards it. So it's very important, because it's not only the family that needs a contribution and an economic development, but it's also the country that strives to move ahead, and women can contribute very effectively towards that. And time and again, it's been proven that women contribute significantly, whether it's a corporate or it's an individual. They're multitaskers, they are firm decision makers, and they are very great at interpersonal skills. They are able to emotionally relate to people. So I think that's the difference that we have made in the work environment. And that's where I think the contribution goes towards, is that, we change the dynamics that people look at things with, and we bring a different perspective altogether, which is covering most of the aspects that is required for an informed decision.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rachana. So with that, I would like to introduce Ms. Hannah Reynolds. Ms. Hannah Reynolds is an international gender consultant based in Geneva, And before taking up her position, she was the CEO of Israeli-Palestinian Social Enterprise. Ms. Anna holds a degree in International Development Studies with focus on gender and has experience working with women's empowerment projects in Israel and Rwanda. So it's great to have you with us today, Ms. Anna. And you can begin the session by saying what's the economic and business rationale or the basis behind Womenomics. So over to you, Ms. Hannah.
Hi, everyone. And it's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here. So thanks for having me. So I think, Mishma, you gave me the perfect segue by just kind of introducing my career and my background as a woman myself in the labor market. And I think my personal journey towards this was really kind of threefold. Of first, learning and observing while working in projects with communities in Rwanda and Israel. Then doing myself as being the female CEO of a social enterprise in Israel. And now I'm in the role of consulting in the UN system and basically trying to contribute to the implementation of the United Nations System-Wide Action Plan on Gender Equality. So something that's really important for me to stress is that, yes, gender equality and women's equal participation in the labor market is a business case. There's countless studies, and I'm really happy to see, that there's a shift in discourse over the past years that show that it makes absolute sense in terms of the competitive edge that you want to have as your company, the resilience, the productivity, and also the diversity and creativity in different approaches with the way that you deal with things, to have more diversity in your teams, to include women actively in the workforce. But I also miss an element in the current discourses that just states, first and foremost, women's equal participation in the economy is also a basic human right, and it's a normative objective. And I think that's something that, with stressing the business case so much, sometimes gets lost in it. The fact that there are still countless social, political obstacles, cultural obstacles that bar women from equally participating in the labor market, and that first of all, we also need to take care, of making the case on a normative level that women should have equal access to rights, to resources, to representation. So this is something that's, I think, really important for me to state, as we go deeper into the very economically centered debate. But yeah, as I said, there's been a number of case studies of, more qualitative nature of different companies that show that having a more diverse team, having gender equality actually did make companies more productive, made them more resilient to crises, which especially now in the COVID-19 pandemic is a really important factor. And also that, just including women to a larger extent in the workforce, trying to close the gender gap, can release really astronomical numbers, actually, like trillions of US dollars in the worldwide economy, and boost economic growth to an extent, that we haven't seen yet. So it really is a powerful lever as well for overall socioeconomic development.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. And yes, we'll get back to you on the political effects on Womenomics. So with that, I would like to introduce Ms. Laurie McNeil. Ms. McNeil is a champion of initiatives to empower women leaders. Our mission is to build women confidence and help them build their skill set to reach their full potential. She is driven to close the gender gap in regards to executive leadership positions. Ms. McNeil is a keynote speaker for conferences focused on women's development and regular coaches and mentors female executives at all levels of their career. Ms. McNeil currently serves as the president and founder of McNeil Consulting. She works with organizations to minimize the disruption that change can have on process, culture, and people, so they have the ability to fulfill their vision and mission. Ms. McNeil serves on the board of directors for multiple companies. She is also the board chair and strategic advisor for Global PPE. Ms. McNeil is a graduate at Harvard University with a master's in psychology. So it's great to have you with us today, Ms. Laurie. And with that, my first question for you is, can you add your own insights on the economic and business rationale behind Womenomics?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be a part of this very important topic on Womenomics. Now, regarding the business and economic rationale for this particular topic. I think we can all agree from a social perspective, it's critical. It's our human right to be able to participate in the workforce, to be able to have equal rights as our male counterparts. But that conversation, I think, only goes so far. I want to talk about it to this point from an economic perspective, because that, I think, speaks to men and a lot of aspects, whether it does from a social perspective or not. So we can look at this from a variety of levels. If you start to consider it from the biggest level, if we're just looking at it globally and then even nationally, what makes the difference there? There have been multiple studies that have shown that it can increase and boost GDP from 10 to 15%. And that's significant for any economy. So that in itself is worth looking at Womenomics and being very intentional about it. So that's one aspect. But let's look at it from taking it down each level to a very granular perspective. If you start to look at it from a corporate level, it's been shown, and I'm talking specifically about women in leadership positions, not just women in the workforce, but in leadership positions. It's been shown, for example, that women on boards have an 80% improvement on return on sales when companies have at least 3 women on their boards over a sustained period of time, that there's a 60% improvement in return on capital and a 46% improvement on return of equity. So you're looking at it from a national perspective as well as from a corporate perspective with women in leadership roles. Then take it down just to having women in the workforce and diversity of teams. It's been shown as well from that business and economic rationale that it's better in regards to innovation. Countless studies show that gender diversity within teams improves innovation, and that's just good for any company and any country, quite honestly. It's also important for creativity. It's important for inclusiveness. And then if you take it down to a much more granular perspective, just from our relationships and from the family, it just is good from a perspective of having role models. So look at it from all those different levels, whether it's globally, nationally, corporate, and then also from that perspective of the family and our one-on-one relationships. So all across that, it makes good business sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Laurie. And with that, I would like to introduce our next panelist, Ms. Rita Kakati Shah. Ms. Rita is an award-winning gender, diversity, inclusion, and career strategist, an author, speaker, mentor, and advisor to Fortune 500 companies. She is the founder and CEO of UMA, an international platform that empowers confidence, inspires success, and builds leadership in women and minorities. She is also a distinguished alumna of King's College London and a triple Stevie Awards for Women in Business winner and judge for the Middle East Awards. Ms. Rita has been featured as an expert on multiple international television and news shows, interviewed and quoted in various podcasts and publications such as The Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, and Thrive Global. She's a best-selling author of books on women in business, diversity, and inclusion, and also hosts the popular South Asian television show, The UMA Show, on Mana TV International. It's great to have you with us today, Ms. Rita. And with that, my first question for you is, the term Womenomics has been in effect since 1999. So since then, what progress have we made globally? Over to you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I think some of what our panelists have already covered is that if you look at the research and the statistics out there, the McKinsey study shows that if women had an identical role to men in the labor markets, then as much as 28% or $25 trillion could be added to the global GDP. That is an astounding amount. It's different at a localized level, that's $12 trillion, but at the global level, that is if everything was equal. Responsibilities in the household were shared equally. The workforce, pay was equal. There are a lot of issues we're going to talk about later on that aren't equal to stop that, but at the moment, if things were equal, that is what it would be. So globally, companies are seeing that. There is a lot more leadership in the board positions as well. There's a lot more changes as well in terms of buying power. over 70% of buying decisions in households are made by women and carried out by women as well. We're talking historically, when the term Womenomics first came about, women still had buying decisions, but they didn't have the buying power. Women now have more buying power, which is part of that progress that we talk about as well. Then when you talk about the workforce itself, you think about what are these skills that make you a good leader? Well, back, we're talking 34 years ago, we were measured by our IQ, intelligence quotient. Fast forward from there 10, 15 years, then we talk about the EQ, the emotional quotient, which we know women naturally have more on. Fast forward for now, and a couple of the writings that I've recently authored on is the decency quotient, in terms of having the potential to do right by others. And naturally, who has that more? As a natural thing, it is actually women. So when we talk about progress, we talk about financial progress, economic progress, household progress. It is women by virtue of having these natural skills and the recognition that these are having at the moment. So if we look at where we are, think about the leaders out there. Who are these role models? Well, there are prime ministers. Back in the early day when I was growing up in the UK, we had Margaret Thatcher. She was one of few at the time. Now you look around and we have, role models in all sorts of senior leadership positions. It's taken them a lot to get there, but they're there now. We look at sports personalities. Quite often now we don't look at the terminology, which is women's football or women's tennis. It's very much like tennis, but here's the women's team or the men's team. So there's a lot more equality in the way sports, lifestyles, everything is discussed to give that progress as well in the term of Womenomics. So I just wanted to say that that's really the progress that we're seeing, and breadwinners in the household as well. When who's generally the leading earner? Traditionally, it was always men, and yes, statistically, it's still more men, but now women are taking the reins a lot more. These days, when families relocate, it's not always for the man's job. It's also nowadays for the women's job as well. And this all helps with the progress on Womenomics.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rita. And we also have Ms. Ida Ganga with us. Unfortunately, she has a bit of connectivity issue, but I would go ahead and give a brief introduction on Ms. Ida. So she is the founder of a regional consortium of experts for development who use technology as an enabler for achieving the SDGs. She's also the regional head for UNESCO Emerging Technologies for Development. So she supports research on the impact of emerging technologies, gender, data policy, and Africa collaboration. She's the president of Women in STEM Network and its Women in AI Africa Network, and a trainer and coach in adaptive leadership and emotional intelligence and resilience for technology and socio-economic impact-driven organizations affected by COVID-19. She is a Google partner on online safety and security, computer science education and cloud solutions, as well as a lead ambassador for Africa Code Week UNESCO. So it's great to have you with us, Ms. Ida. And if you can hear me, please can you address on what are the biggest challenges that persist in women's economic empowerment? So we'll get into the panel discussion, and due to time constraints, I would like to request the speakers to limit the answers to 2 minutes or lesser. So my first question, I would like to pose it to Ms. Andrea. Why is Womenomics more of a business strategy that countries or corporations should initiate rather than just a gender parity initiative?
So I think a lot of things are already said by the other panel members. You already supported all the question what I have been I got. So what I want to give to this question is that, yes, it's very, very important that we take it as a business strategy, because women, as you also said, are a very important part of economy today, and we all have to contribute so that we can all thrive and we can all grow together in this economic situation that is all around us today. And why companies has to make this a very strict policy or part of their policies, because it's actually the trend. It's something that is happening all around us, and we cannot shut our ears. We have to go with this trend on the economics. And I again say that I really believe that it's not really about just women. It's about the female energies. It's about all the things that we have to caress, because female energies are there in men and women at the same time. So if we finally see how it's working, as Rita mentioned, in other different countries, that a women is leading and the women leader is giving the female energy, and men also will actually embrace this energy, then the world can change on a different way and can take a different direction. And that's why it's an important thing that it will be part of all the business strategies, no matter where we are in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Andrea. And we have this famous quote from the movie Spider-Man: "With great power comes great responsibility." So my next question is to Ms. Laurie. How do you ensure that women do not shy away from power and be more assertive in taking up their responsibilities? Over to you, Ms. Laurie.
Thank you. So I'm happy to answer this question, because I honestly think that it comes down to the fact that it's accountability. That is something that each and every woman that's watching this today needs to be thinking about. It's not just a responsibility, but it's the fact that every single one of us is accountable for being able to dive into this particular topic and understand what we ourselves can do within our role. I think that it's important for us to be talking about policy and what can be done. I think that it's really important for us to go back and take a look at all of these phenomenal women leaders that have paved the way for us. We've come so long in such, I want to say a short amount of time, but I don't really think that that's the case. I think it's unfortunately been a long period of time, but we are here today, and this is the opportunity for us to continue to set the path for ourselves, continue to break the glass ceiling. And for us to do that, it's going to start with every single person being responsible for their own actions, responsible for their mindset, which we're going to start talking about that a few questions later, because I think that that's really key. But it's really going to be coming down to instilling confidence. I think that this event and others like this is going to be the key. It's women supporting women, and then also women bringing men into the discussion. I wrote an article about this. It was the cover story for HR.com, because I feel that earlier this year when I was talking about this, it's the fact that we have to bring the men into the conversation. This has to be a part of discussion at every men's conference that's taking place out there, not just the women's conferences. So let's take accountability. Let's broaden the conversation so that we are supporting one another, and then let's bring men into the discussion as well. And then once again, I think that's going to come down to the confidence. When we ourselves have the confidence and when we're supporting the others, that's going to help everybody. And therefore, women will not be shying away from it, and they will embrace that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Laurie. And I think we have Ms. Ida with us. So, yes. So, Ms. Ida, the same question to you again. What are the biggest challenges that persist in women's economic empowerment?
Thank you so much. You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. That's a very good question, and it's very timely. Some of the challenges that women have been facing, especially when it comes to economic emancipation, is the lack of a level playing field. You know, it's one thing to talk about empowering women economically, but it's another thing to find a playing field where the men are so far ahead, it's really tough to catch up. Now, as a woman myself, these are challenges I have faced. And even in a professional life, I have found that I had to try and see things realistically. And realistically means we cannot pretend we are on the same level. You just have to, let's say, for example, if it's your own initiatives on how to emancipate yourself economically, you just have to take it and run with it. Now, remember, it's going to take a while. I know we are breaking glass ceilings here and there, but if you truly ask how many women in total are as economically emancipated as men, or if we actually calculate and add up in terms of real money, then there's a huge gap. But it's okay because we are getting there, but we just need to give women the skills And not only that, we have to give them the knowledge and the acumen of where are these deals being made. Because you cannot just sit in your normal community or your normal environment and expect to break through. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ida, and I hope we don't lose you again, and hope you stay for the rest of the panel. So with that, my next question is to Ms. Hannah. Politics is another area, a very important area, where we actually need to implement Womenomics to a greater extent and have more women to be the change. So how can we increase the number of women in active politics to bring about the necessary change? Over to you, Ms. Hannah.
Thank you. Yes, I think these two issues really can't be looked at in isolation from each other. So we definitely have to increase the number of women in political decision-making bodies across the world and across different levels, so from the community to the national to the international level. In political theory, people usually like to talk about the difference between substantive and symbolic representation of women. So substantive meaning that there's a higher chance that female lawmakers might bring women's issues more to the table and might be more sensitive towards them and then actually act upon them. So, for example, introducing better parental leave conditions in the workplace. The symbolic representation is equally important because it also just, I think, first of all, gives younger women or women in general positive role models and just kind of changes the norms around what is considered legitimate for women and their relationship to power in a society. So both are important, and we will need to work on both levels and, also on different angles to increase women's participation in politics. There's a number of measures and levels, we can use for that. So the first one, I think, is just very basic, and I think Ida's playing field metaphor is really beautiful. So we basically first have to level the playing field, right? So we have to change legislation. In some countries, that was done through introducing quotas, women quotas in decision-making bodies or economic bodies. In other countries, it just means abolishing discriminatory laws, and just there's the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So just ratifying as a country this convention and then starting to implement it is a first step to allow higher representation of women. Of course, all of this won't really be effective if we don't work on transforming social norms. So we also have to work on sensitization, local grassroots level empowerment, working with communities. And then apart from the playing field, we need to empower the players. So, we can work on capacity building of local female politicians. We can work actively with engaging men and trying to bring around a social normative change around these issues. So these are equally important. And then lastly, I think a lot of it also comes down to just a kind of pragmatic acknowledgement of the realities on the ground. So, for example, women won't be able to, represent a party and city council if plenary sessions take place until 2 a.m. in the morning, because in most parts of the world, women still have the main child-rearing responsibility. And I think just working on trying to change these issues while also at the same time not waiting around for that and trying to pragmatically respond to needs that women have when they want to enter politics, that's going to be the way forward.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hannah. So according to the Business Standard e-paper, of the 58.5 million entrepreneurs in India, nearly 14% are women. In addition, even though women have by far outnumbered men in the field of learning and education, they still remain greatly underrepresented at the top level of all sectors across the country. So my question is to Ms. Rita, what do you think would be an ideal solution to change this ratio?
That is a really, really great question. And I think if you look at, in order to answer the question, what is the root cause of what's causing it in the first place? And it's not just in India. You've shared the statistic from India, but if you look around the world, whether it's in the UK FTSE 100 companies or in the US, you look at Fortune 500 companies, there are less than 5% CEOs, irrespective of their education, of their grounding and how they progressed in the workforce. So something is obviously stopping that. There is a disconnect from grassroots level to mid-level, and then suddenly a big drop to getting to the senior level. And you think, what is that? Well, there are multi-factors there. One of them is that there is a patriarchy in society, specifically in South Asian countries like India, for example. There is a certain stereotype, a role that if you're a woman, you are married, you must go home and you have to cook for your family, irrespective of how late you've been in the workforce or working till, and you might even have childcare at home to look after your kids, but you're still the one responsible for that. That is a huge, huge pressure on women in itself. And Harvard Business Review with McKinsey just put a study out a couple of months ago, actually, that during the pandemic, 25% of women are leaving the workforce because of this added role and the responsibilities that they're facing. So on one hand, society is saying, yes, come on, women, let's push you up. But the other hand, the same society is pushing the women back down again. So there is the patriarchal society there and the role models. And also in some of these societies, you have family members actually speaking to their daughters and saying to them, I want you to get educated so you can get married later on. And that is the messaging that a lot of these young girls are getting. So on one hand, they're getting schools, they're getting really good education. On the other hand, they have another voice up here, which actually formulates their biases, their value system to say that I'm a woman, I have to get married just to, raise a family or just to stay at home. So there's a different messaging that they're getting as well. So not only when women's empowerment, we talk about that, you have to almost force yourself out of that mentality and fight culture, so you're not so radical to offend your system that you got brought up in, but understand it and make changes happen. So there's a lot of these backroot things going on as well. And then also from a society perspective, what is that disconnect? Well, the Global Institute of Women's Leadership at King's College London actually did a study on this. They actually found that 18% of men globally feel that staying at home to look after children makes you less of a man. That in Great Britain, that stat went down to 13%. So yes, that's doing a little bit better. Then you look at India, that's 39% of men think that. In South Korea, which unfortunately came the bottom of the list, that was 76%. So the point being, this is a global forum. There are global mindsets that are very much in a different space right now. So when we talk about how do these changes happen, what is stopping people, it is an amalgamation of all of these global mindsets. They do have to be changed. Much change is needed. And so, as some of the panelists have already alluded to, in order to do this, you need to bring society, you need to bring the education system, you need to bring men, you need to bring older generations onto and educate them about this. When you talk about, womenomics, it's actually, in a way, family economics. Shouldn't be, as one of our panelists have said, men versus women. In order to do this correctly, it needs to be engendered so that it is recognized as about everybody is producing in the economy. Why do you think when a woman has a child and a natural job for her, because it's so difficult to get back into the professional workforce, she becomes an entrepreneur, which led to the birth of the term mumpreneur. It's such a popular term, and what so many women around the world are doing, because they cannot go into the normal world, and yet they are establishing and producing for the economy. So there's a lot to be done. Concluding remarks would be that, bring everybody onto the table, educate as much as possible, understand the different norms, and that's the only way that some of the change is going to get made in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Rita. So with that, and to build on that, I would like to pose the next question to Ms. Rachana. Can you give us examples of women's active participation that led to tangible growth or success in companies?
Yeah. Actually, if you look at, I deal with a lot of small and medium enterprises in India. And, till the Companies Act was changed and the women directorship was mandated in the Companies Act, we hardly saw women entrepreneurs acting as directors of company or being at the board of the companies, listed companies. But the moment the act was incorporated, we saw, it was the change was that, yes, the women board was there on the constituted in the right manner. But having said that, only the wives were brought in, or the mothers were brought in, or the sisters were brought in, So significantly, the contribution was not happening. It was just for the namesake, or I would say it was just a tick in the box to say that, yes, we have women on the board. But now, over a period of time, what I see is that, it has changed because I think people have realized that it is important to have diversity on the board. It is important that you have people in that positions who are able to actually take a very informed or a very calculated and a very diverse decision involving the entire genre of people rather than just looking at the males or the females, So it's very important. We've seen active participation as, women being in the leadership positions. In any organization that you see, you will have quite a fair distribution of women at the entry levels or even at the mid-management level. But the moment you go at senior management levels, you see that, the number of women have dropped out. It is sometimes it is due to the circumstances that prevail around the women, or sometimes it is because the environment is not conducive for a woman to grow up to that level. So what I have seen is that, it is about a persistent effort of the women to be in the game. It's about a persistent effort to be, yes, I prioritize that this is also what I want to do. It is not just that I get married and have a child. It's important. That's also very important. Motherhood is very, very important. But having said that, what is important is how have I developed my support system so that actually I don't have to do this or that. I can do both the things. I think that is very important, and that is where some of us fail in, selecting or in choosing that, yes, I will do this and that. It's very, very important. And here I see the change happening in India. I see the change happening across, and I think the government has been very conscious of driving this gender equality, I would say, or active contribution of the women in the workforce as well. So we have the parental leave, which has played a very important role, where the parents, it's the husband and the wife who are equally getting in to take care of a newborn baby. So that's very important, to change, not only provide support to the women at that point in time, but also to change a mindset that yes, it's important for a father to be equally involved in child growth, So active participation is there, and I think a lot of steps have been taken by the government. The corporates are getting into a lot of women empowerment seminars and a lot of women empowerment, I would say, on sessions to ensure that they have women not only at the entry levels, but at the leadership positions as well. But yes, there is a lot of area to be covered in that segment as well. And I think, it'll take some time for not only this ecosystem to evolve in support of women getting into that levels, but it is also the mindset change of the patriarchal society in India, the mindset change of the women itself that, yes, I will do it and I can do it.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. So with that, back to Ms. Ida. Entrepreneurship is on the rise, and the new opportunities are being created globally in this front. So do you feel that this would lead to an enhanced rate in Womenomics, with more women choosing to take up positions of higher power and leadership? Over to you, Ms. Ida.
Okay, great. I was saying it's a very, very good question. For me, the opportunity for women to be entrepreneurs has always been there. It has always been there. I know, right? Sort of. It's been a buzzword for the past, let's say, about 10 years or so. It's been a buzzword for quite a while. But that does not mean that the opportunity for women to be entrepreneurs has not been there. It's been there for as long as we can remember. But what was not there was the focus on the woman and the building of the skills for the woman to enable the woman to go forth as an entrepreneur. There was also opportunities for women, as in, it was easier for men to get the level of financing that to expand at scale. And so with these you found that it's mostly men who were able to land the large-scale industries. But we need to move beyond the word entrepreneur, because for me, I feel like we are equating entrepreneurship with small business. And that is not necessarily the same thing. Entrepreneurship does not mean small business. It also means big business. On the wide people running or women running businesses at micro and small or medium level. We need to just talk to women about the future, the vision they have, and the industries that they're going to build. When a woman starts off with this vision, I know myself, my mindset was totally changed because I was brought up with boys, and there was no difference, according to my father, in what the boy could achieve or the girl could achieve. He just made sure we were talking about the big picture and seeing the. Then he would say, let's break it down to small steps. What we need the big picture. What kind of impact can you make, not only in your community, but also in the nation? And then now she can start working with her small and increasing what we call binding the operational unit. It makes the operational unit so successful that it's easy to scale it. Just a matter of multiplying the same kind of unit or outlet as the question calls upon. So yeah, for me, it's easy to do big things when your mind is thinking about big things. It's just a change of mindset, and I still find it so surprising that such a small thing can be a human being. So yes, we need to, and we need to equip the woman with thinking big, to tell them that the big industries.
Thank you, Ms. Ida. We had a bit of connectivity issue there, but I think we got the overall picture of it. Thank you so much. So with that, I'll have to cut short the panel discussion since we are almost way past our time. So I would like to have one concluding, word of advice from the panelists. As all the panelists have stressed upon mindset, my last question is, what is the kind of mindset women should nurture if we are looking at a women's economic advancement? So I would like to start with Ms. Hannah.
Thank you. And also let me say just thank you again. This has been really fun and so interesting to hear my fellow panelists. Yeah, the mindset question has come up a lot. I personally want to say two things. I guess the first thing kind of echoes what Andrea said earlier, which is, this is not only about being a woman and advancing just in terms of, like your gender characteristic. It's about a leadership style. And I think in that sense, we need to all adopt a different leadership style. And we should not try as women to model kind of, the leadership style that white men in privileged positions of power have modeled for us for a really long time before, which was kind of competitive and elbow mentality. But to really try to adopt a leadership style that is based on care and empathy and dialogue and horizontal hierarchies. So that's the first one, to just kind of distinguish these two elements. The second one is really to not be so hard on yourself. I think if you're a young woman, trying to advance professionally, trying to make it in entrepreneurship, building your own business, we hear a lot of, no pain, no gain kind of mentality. You have to want it, you have to push, you have to lean in. And I think there's rightfully so a lot of emerging criticism towards these paradigms, because in the end, there we come back to the metaphor of the playing field still isn't leveled. And I believe that acknowledging, that you're not in the same position when you start off, and that's not only being a woman, but there's all kinds of other factors that overlap with that, like your social class, your ethnicity, your geographic origin. It just, it's not as easy to start off with than it is for other people in the world. And I think acknowledging that as you start your journey or continue your journey in the professional world, just kind of takes the pressure off from you, maybe. So I think that's like the biggest thing that I learned personally for myself, and that I would always tell other women to go into this with confidence and, an ability and like a sense of agency of your ability to change things, and believing in that and believing in your own power, but also understanding that there are some limitations, that you can't internalize because otherwise you're taking too much of a weight on your shoulders.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ms. Laurie?
Absolutely. So I have to say, I'm thrilled we are ending with this particular question because I think that mindset is the most important thing that everyone should be taking away from this discussion today. So there's two things. First, the first word that I think matters the most here is being fearless. There's just no other way around that. For us to be able to make strides in Womenomics, it has to do with being fearless. It goes back to what I said earlier in the discussion about having confidence. If women understand the value and what they have to offer, they should have confidence and therefore not be shying away from power and the responsibility. If they have confidence, then they should be fearless. If they're fearless, quite honestly, they can be unstoppable. And I think that that's really what it comes down to is just making sure we understand our worth, that we are fearless about these conversations within the home, with a significant other, a partner, or family. It needs to be fearless in regards to going after those leadership positions within corporations, and then fearless in regards to our activism to be able to ensure that policy is made. And then I think also to go along with that, it has to do with persistence. All of us have to understand that this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Change does not happen overnight. Change is sometimes not easy, but it is necessary. And so for us to have change, it's going to require being fearless. It's going to require being persistent. And with the last thing I will say is a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, whom I think has been a phenomenal leader and has really paved the way for us in a lot of ways. And one of the things that she said is the very next thing you need to be doing is the thing that terrifies you most. So be fearless.
Thank you, Miss Laurie. Miss Andrea?
Thank you very much. I am just standing next to Laurie and all the other ladies before me. It's really, really important that the mindset is right. I think that's the first thing that we have to take care of, because first of all, my big message to women here is let go of the guilt. We have been for centuries pushed by the guilt that we cannot do anything else than being mothers, doing this, doing that. So please, every woman out there, just let it go. It's time to let go of this feeling, because otherwise you will be all the way in this cage that the society created for us. So this is the first thing. The second thing is speak up. Please speak up if you have anything that is hurting you, or anything that is hurting you or limiting you. Speak up, because this is the exact time when it's time to speak up, because you will have listening ears all around you, whether it's a woman or a man. It's happening. As Laurie said, men are starting to be part of the conversation. I met many men who are already helping us to be heard. So this is really, really important. And the last thing is that question things. Question things, stay curious. Don't believe anything what you hear. Be like a child, wander on the world all the way, and learn it yourself. So if someone says to you that this is the world and it's like this, try to question it first and try to see whether it's like that, and make your own rules, as we already said. And Womenomics is actually basically about this, that you make your own success on your own way, and you create your way of success. I say it, dare to dance your life. Thank you very much.
Lovely. That was really lovely, Miss Andrea. Okay. Miss Rita?
Yeah, I love this question to end on, because I would say that, so I named my company Uma after the Hindu goddess Uma, because she is a mother, a daughter, a sibling, a wife. So it really depicts all of the many, many roles that we as women have at some point in our lives. She is strong, she is confident, and she is full of determination. I call her the goddess of go-getting. So I guess my words to everybody would say that embrace that inner goddess of go-getting that you already have inside of you. There is nothing you need to change. It's already in there. You just have to awaken that inner spirit, that confidence, and it will all come out. So just final words I would say is actually our tagline at Uma, which is be bold, be you, be Uma.
That was great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Rita. I'm actually feeling bad that we have to cut short this panel discussion. But anyways, moving on, Ms. Ida.
Okay, for me, it's very simple. Um, we know their strategies to even playing field. We know it. We know it because we are out there. We are on at levels. We are sitting on the at the board table. What we need to do is take this information back to our sisters, and we just mobilize. We let the information move, and because there are tips and strategies that men share when they're in the club. And we need to do the same with our women, whether we are in the clubs or whether we have to go down to the grassroots. But believe me, there are tips and strategies to getting ahead, and we need to share this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ida. Ms. Rachna?
The mindset that I would want everybody to change or to look at or to review is that you have to break the barriers that we have constructed around ourselves. It's important that we identify not only the challenges that surround us when we want to get into full-fledged workforce. It's also important that we identify what is a trade-off that we are ready to do for. It's important when I say that I am going to be 10 hours at office. I cannot be teaching my child, I cannot be cooking at home, and I cannot be doing everything else. So, what are my trade-offs? What is available to me as alternatives, and how ready I am to get into those alternatives? It's very, very important. I think somewhere that is missing in the Indian women that I have come across. And learn to delegate. Again, learn to delegate. I understand that you can do best for your family, for your work, but it's important that we delegate. And lastly, please don't be harsh on ourselves. I think it's been said earlier, stop the guilt. There's nothing to be guilty about. You've captured it, you've done it, you've overcome it. You can only get better. So just don't be harsh on yourself.
Thank you, Ms. Rachna. That was really power-packed, motivational, inspirational. I'm probably running short of adjectives and adverbs to describe how the session has been. And I would like to conclude with a snippet from a book, Womenomics, Write Your Own Rules for Success. We are not looking for a better company cafeteria, a free dinner after working late, or a fancy gym, all glittering handcuffs to keep us in the job. We want freedom to make our own decisions, to control our own work life. Our talent, experience, diligence, and commitment they are coming to see are more than a fair trade. The trend is called Womenomics, and it will become the dominant work and worldview in the years to come for women and for men. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, on behalf of CIMSME and GCPIT, I would like to thank our panelists, Ms. Andrea Zapka, Ms. Hannah Reynolds, Ms. Ida Ganga, Ms. Lori McNeil, Ms. Rachna Busari, and Ms. Rita Kakatisha for being with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank
with
you so
that,
much.
thank you. And participants, we're going to come back and we're going to listen to some inspirational stories from women leaders across the world. So stay with us, stay tuned. We'll meet you after a short commercial break. Thank you.